public. There we go.
Cool. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This is our second installment of the spooky month with No Fret Vet and Pet Care and Happy Dogs, and we are talking all things fear related. The month of October, as we like to call it, the spooky month. I am Ilse Fourie. I run No Fret Vet and Pet Care Consulting, where I help owners, vets, groomers, kennel workers, etc., catteries, teach strategies to lower fear, anxiety, and stress in the pets that we care for. And over to Bianca.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the series. It's lovely to have you all back here with us. And tonight, as Ilse explained, we're going to be speaking about fear in dogs and what it looks like and how we can notice these fear-induced states in our wonderful pets. So welcome, Eugene. Hello, how are you? Nice to see you.
Great. So I think before we delve into identifying fear, anxiety, and stress, just a little very brief recap, and then I think Bianca, you and I can just have like a to and fro between it. So last time we spoke about what is fear, and that it's a very helpful emotion to have. It's part of a larger emotional system. Well, it is a larger emotional system. When fear arises. So what we have there is we've got the 4F system, sometimes referred to as the 5F system. We've got fight, flight or flee, fawn or fret, and we've got freeze. And then some species, they've got faint as well. So I think, Bianca, we can kind of talk about and every species has got their own kind of way that they exhibit these fear behaviors. And I think it's also important for us to know in which F they are. Hazard avoidance behavior, the main thing with that behavior that they're displaying is they want to get rid of the threatening stimulus, the thing that gets them very worried. I think in that moment we forget that our dogs and cats, when they are barking, and Bianca will go into a little bit, maybe we can touch a little bit on aggression, is from their point of view, they are not being naughty. They are literally thinking, I am going to die. That is literally what they are thinking. They're going, I am going to die. No matter how irrational it might seem for us. Remember, they are not rational the way that we are. And even with us, like we can have irrational fears. Like fear isn't rational. It is our brain going protect, protect, protect. So Bianca, I know you mentioned last time that there was a patient of a client of yours that you saw where there was kind of that like freeze behavior. Have you, out of those Fs, what are the ones that you kind of see the most? What were the ones that you come across the most?
Ilse, so it's interesting. I see the fight come up quite, the fight and freeze. That's quite regular. And that seems to be the initial period that it shows up. So in that specific case, it was quite a strange appearance for me, because it happened when the dog was being asked to wait. So the emotion of fear obviously built up in the dog's body, and then the dog was not responsive. Or should I say that the dog had no capacity to be responsive in that place. But there was it was an emotional response of pressure, from my perspective, more than an outside stimuli. So from that perspective, there was nothing that alluded me to anything around the environment that was causing this dog to be in a freeze state. But I also just wanted to add that when you were speaking about fear, I often wonder how much of the dog's past, like we spoke about last week, does reinforce the fear. And today I was busy in training, and I wondered if you had any clarity on, do you think dogs' memory can induce fear?
I think so. I think especially if there's one event learning that happens, so if it was something that was quite traumatic for them. So I mean, I think memory really goes into can potentially activate phobias to a certain extent. So if I'm just thinking of my little dog, I'm currently not at home in Neisner, and there was a thunderstorm today. And my mom was telling me that Rocco, he's literally thunder phobic. So he's very noise phobic, specifically thunder and fireworks. Now, I don't know exactly why it happened. I remember I rescued him when he was about 7 months old. And I remember from the beginning, he would get, it's gotten worse the older he's gotten, to the point where he actually needs psychopharmaceutical intervention, because he actually hurts himself. He starts shaking, he starts hyperventilating. And, from, again, that kind of thing of, I don't know what could have potentially happened to him. There must be something that triggers his memory that sends him so far over the edge. Because, from everything that I'm doing, like holding him, consoling him, making sure that he's fine, that still isn't enough to override that actual phobia. Now, I understand and appreciate phobia is like the really very deep spectrum of fear, and fear is a spectrum. It's not just like fight. And we also spoke a little bit about that spectrum, that there's there's grades of fear. I think it could be, when you speak about that client of yours, it could be something in the air that, from your point of view and from our point of view, we might be going, but we don't see anything, we don't hear anything that could potentially do that. It could be a change in air pressure that reminds them of something that was traumatic. It could be the smell of something that reminds them of something that's traumatic. Something clearly for Rocco, it's definitely, I know the air pressure already. If I know a storm's coming, I just need to look at him and I know, okay, the storm's about to come. So there's clearly a change for him that triggers that memory that he then goes into that state. I definitely think that we know that the hippocampus, where memory is stored, and the amygdala have a very, very close relationship in the brain. And the amygdala, being our fight or flight center. So I definitely think I definitely think memory plays a role. In terms of that memory, if you agree with me, how would you kind of like start going about changing that loaded memory? Is there a way that we can change it? Is there, is it, how do we go about kind of laying new neural pathways, I guess, is my question.
So it was, just to bring it back and to answer indirectly, talking about the thunderstorm today. There was quite a jittery energy when I was training some puppies, and they were around about 6 months old. And yes, there was a lot going on. There was cows in the background, there was sheep. So we had to add that into the bucket of stimulus that was going around there. But the moment that we started to hear the thunder, there were different reactions at that time. So one of the dogs started getting really worried, which looked from the outside in like almost like a scattered behavior. So it wasn't, it hadn't gone into, induced, you know, it hadn't induced itself into full-blown fear. There was no response of running away or hiding.
Do you think it might have been a fret behavior and a fawning behavior, like that kind of like that F?
Yes, definitely. I would definitely have marked it as a fawn behavior, because he was able to be responsive when he was called back, but the automatic response was to be back into that fawn behavior. So it was almost like his level of containment due to the sound was taken away. And it was interesting because these puppies are 6 months old, and obviously there's not many thunderstorms that happen here in Knysna. So it was a new experience, and I was quite grateful because I went on to explaining that during a thunderstorm, and the dogs are hearing the sound, picking up the air pressure for the first time, the very best thing that you can do for a dog is take them for a walk. Obviously, you have to be realistic and you have to be safe while doing it. So you as the guardian have to monitor how far, but taking the dog for a walk, because dogs love to walk. When they're walking, they sniff. So to answer your questions, sniffing is one of the motives that we can use to reduce the fear. Sorry, there's Archie. Archie is saying hello. He's
Archie is sniffing.
Archie is sniffing.
Sniff, like,
you know. So to get to your question, that sniffing can definitely calm a dog's central nervous system down. And we carried on our training, and at some point the thunder started to increase, and I decided to let the dogs play. So the dogs started to make a more positive association to the thunder and the lightning, which is a biggie for most. You know, it's a very usual. I see it very often that, you know, dogs are affected by the sound. So that was lovely and interesting to see the dogs still having the joy of playing under the circumstances. So already we started to, even something as small as that, we already started to create some association with the thunder.
And it's also beautiful that you did it at such a precarious age of around, you know, you say, you know, they were about 6 months old, you know, that adolescent where we know during adolescence the brain is starting to really almost not solidify, but, you know, kind of there's a little bit more neuro pathway rigidity starting to form, you know, going from the puppy brain to the adult brain. So that's really, really good that you did that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, we didn't, and what was lovely to see was that there were the guardians were willing to stay and to work it through and not get freaked out, because the guardians freaking out just transfers to the dog, which that in itself, if we had to just take a little bit of a detour for a minute and we had to explore what happens when the dog becomes reactive because of the guardian's response. So we can also say that the dog's picking up on the guardian's fear, and that gets transferred or projected onto the dog, and that's also another way in which fear can happen, as it's so subtle, it's just under the radar. So from your perspective, is an older dog able to work through a very imprinted reaction of fear?
I think it depends. I think it depends on how far down it is. If it's a full-blown phobia, chances are not so much. Again, phobia is like, it's called a phobia for a very particular reason, right? But I do think with older dogs, it is about.
Can you define full-blown phobia?
So phobia, a phobia is essentially, it is where the fear response goes into almost like a hyperdrive. It is an absolute, the central nervous system literally goes completely, I almost want to say like on fire. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you say. You know, we see it in people. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter. It's a completely get stuck. And it is a, and what's very important is that there's that physiological response keeps escalating. There's no chance of bounce back. There's no chance, and it only resets. And again, phobia isn't anxiety, because anxiety, like we said last time, is, you know, it's more chronic. A phobia is acute, i.e., that thing that causes the phobia, the second that goes away, that is the only time that there is any potential of starting to reason with or talking about it, or you know, saying, okay, I know it's a spider and you're very scared of spiders. Don't worry, the spider is 2 meters away. Someone with a spider phobia, they just hear the word spider almost, or they just see the little leg of the spider, and immediately they're in that state, in that frame of mind. And also, what's very important with a phobia is where it's different from fear is, a phobia is almost impossible to change, because even if you give a very low, at a distance, very low stimulus, and then you present the trigger. So even if I take, let's say with my dog, even if I try and put like the sound of thunder at like 0.01 volume, he's gonna freak. There is just the slightest introduction of that trigger, of that stimulus that triggers him, sends him overboard. That's when you know you're dealing with a true phobia, that you can't do systemic desensitization, you can't do any form of counter conditioning. That is essentially what makes it a phobia, as opposed to just a fear response. So yeah, so
that's imprinted. So that's great. That's basically when we say that the behavior has now become imprinted, or the response has now become imprinted. So so we would look to more management to make it more bearable. Should we
exactly
say bearable? Is that a good word to use?
I think bearable is a good one. I don't think tolerance ever happens with a true phobia. I definitely think, yeah, that's the right way of putting it. Yeah, management, exactly. It's the with my boy, it's the earmuffs, it's the towel wrap, it's the benzodiazepine that knocks him out. If I can give it, if I know there's going to be something. What's good with a benzodiazepine is it's got a memory blocking part of it as well. You know, you were talking about the memory. That's, you know, why a benzodiazepine is used quite often with phobias specifically. But I do think with older dogs, if it's truly imprinted like that, management, that is, modification ain't gonna work. No. I think if it's
sorry. You know, I often hear terms in the behavior work, and it goes something, just quoting a few words that I hear very often is, I try everything. I try the treats, I try sniffing, I try the snuffle mat, I try the licky mat. My dog is just unresponsive. There's just nothing I can do in that moment to try change the behavior. And what I was walking past people trying to socialize their dogs the other day, and the dog's body language, the dog's tail between its legs, it was lip curling, growling.
Oh,
and
baby.
And this other dog was really wanting to play, but this dog was giving very clear signs that it was above its threshold. The interaction wasn't being, he wasn't enjoying the interaction. And I see this kind of forceful behavior of trying to push the dog onto, to try and make the dog play, enjoy the play. And It's the same as you have to know where the limitation is. Where's the dog's limitation? Where's that dog's boundary? It's at their home. And trying to just track exactly a situation where we could take the dog away from that particular environment. And would it be right to say that we can use the term time is the essence, put the situation very short, so coping to make environment or that situation, that the body.
Breaking up a little bit there, Bianca.
Can you hear now?
Yes,
Am I
there
back?
we go. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, you said
So,
you were talking about the environment. You have to gauge it.
Yeah. What does it look like? So if a dog arrives at a place, its tail's between its legs, it's in that fawn behavior, and at what point do you start conditioning? Conditioning that behavior so the dog is capable of managing that situation, even if it's just for a short time.
Yeah, I think again, one thing that I say quite often is it really depends on the individual. I think we have to look at bounce back rates, like how quickly can the dog look, and again, it's that gradient. I think it's also unrealistic of us to imagine our dogs always being happy and bouncy and just doing their whole crazy little thing. I think we're organisms. There are going to be moments we're scared. I'm scared sometimes during the day. I mean, it's life, right? But it is, can I bounce back from it? So not getting stuck, so it becomes a phobia. Can I bounce back from it? Can I tolerate it? Some dogs, don't like going to the vet, but cats don't like some cats a lot of cats don't like going to the vet, but can they tolerate the stethoscope on them long enough for the vet to actually take it without further escalating? I think that's the thing. I think the thing is like kind of grading the amount of fear, that we have. So grading the amount of fear in terms of how far up that fear ladder is it? Is it to the point where it's mind-blowing? Or is it, a little bit of fretting behavior? Like, oh, okay, I'm a little bit worried because, there's a thing there that I'm a little bit worried about. I just need to regulate myself, because that's also, part of that fretting behavior is that regulation. I think it is really, I think we get the second we see fear, anxiety, and stress, immediately it's like, oh, it can't happen. Of course, we don't want it to happen, but there are going to be moments where it does happen. But
I guess it's life.
But keeping it to the lower end of that fear, anxiety, and stress thing, where it doesn't go into flee and fight, where it doesn't go into I physically need to run away. It might be, okay, the dog's leaning away, respect it. The cat's leaning away, respect it. Okay, cool. I can see you're not comfortable. You're telling me that you're not comfortable. Let me give you a break. Let's try again. Maybe try a different treat, try a different snack. But yeah, I think that thing of, even fear-free themselves, the actual whole, they even say there isn't anything truly fear-free. There is some degree of discomfort. And I think that's the thing we need to think about it. When we think about fear, is it a little bit of discomfort? Because by the sounds of what you were describing with the fawning and the fretting behavior, that's a dog that's uncomfortable. Are they experiencing full-blown fear where they're going to run for the hills, or they're going to bite your, are they experiencing that I am going to die? Don't think so. I think it's I'm not comfortable. And I think we need to kind of look at the body language that way. Like, what is the body language telling us? Is it, a little bit of a tail tuck, looking around, ears a little bit flat, giving the whale eye? Okay, you're uncomfortable. We have to watch it, give space, and be aware of what the dog or cat is actually is actually worried about. Does that make sense? Do you also see it that way in terms of like the kind of ladder going and managing, keeping them on the lower side of that ladder?
Yeah, I think, we speak about this thing about management, and the when you were speaking about it, I was just thinking about, dogs, animals, and not only dogs, but animals in the wild. And when we have a dog on a lead, they don't really have a choice but to display their discomfort. So that they can't run away because they're on a lead, where it's a natural behavior for animals in the wild because they're not on a lead. So if their fear response comes up, it's actually a natural instinct for an animal in the wild, because that's how they protect themselves, and they're able then to flee if they want to flee. They're able to get away. So and they do mostly a good job at doing that. So I do believe that there's, we're speaking about dogs and being domesticated. I think also, when I see a dog being restricted in a fear state, for me it looks very unnatural. It's a very unnatural. It looks almost unnatural, and I guess I was wondering if they had the response to just actually flee and go to a place where, under something, somewhere under a table, under a bed. I often see my cat Matilda. She's petrified of thunder. She's petrified of loud noises. But what she does for herself is consoling her feels counterintuitive, because I'm trying to console her, but she's trying to get away. So she she comes and she goes and she
Archie.
Archie. She comes and she hides under the bed, and then when she's ready, she comes out in a much calmer state. So even with thunder, even with lightning, it could be beneficial, to make a dog almost like a space where it's contained, it's covered, it blocks out some of the noise. The dogs can go find a way to regulate in that space where, they're capable of just regulating themselves, because once they have that experience once, it's easier for them to come back to that, because then already they've given themselves the tools to find a way out. And here comes the thunder in Eisner as we speak.
Oh dear, little Rocco is probably going to go cuddle with Granny. And that's the thing, like, he does take himself away, and that's exactly what those fear behaviors, it's hazard avoidance behaviors for a reason. They're doing it because they know it's going to keep them safe. And just to come back to that kind of like leash thing, it is super unnatural. I mean, they're not born with leashes, or and we take the flight option away. We know flight is a much more successful and safe than fighting. They don't know they're going to go to the vet and they can get antibiotics, and it's very risky to fight. So we take that flight option away. A big thing, for example, on lead, one of the things that I use a lot, even with my own dogs, is if I see something that's potentially triggering and I can see my dogs starting to escape, but again, I need to know where their threshold is. I need to read their body language and see the signs and go, oh, this is now going to tip overboard, is going the opposite direction, moving faster, actually giving them flight, actually saying, hey, I know you want to flight. You can't flight because you're on a leash, but I'm going to help you flight. And practice rather something like an F like that. Fawning behavior, again, like it's almost like you almost want to reinforce that behavior, because you want to teach them that if I fret or if I fawn or like fidget, there is going to be distance between me and the scary thing, so that I don't need to start climbing the ladder up and up and up into fight, into those kind of behaviors. And I think we're very quick to just almost try and diffuse and just completely, like we're not allowed to show any fear, like fear doesn't exist. And I'm like, I get scared all the time. I have little stims, like, I have my little tics that people who know me know when I do certain things, I'm starting to escalate, and yeah, I just think we sometimes just become it's a little bit unrealistic. Is that kind of like how you also feel about it? Like in terms of our expectations might be, it's almost like we don't want our dogs to exhibit any behaviors sometimes. Like sometimes get the impression from people, oh, my dog barks. Yes.
Natural behavior.
Yeah.
It's a natural behavior,
kind of,
but I guess if you're not trained in this type of work, I often find that it's very difficult because from an energetic level, which happens beneath this reality, that's what happened. That's equated to how dogs live generally. They're picking up signs, signals, they're picking up the undercurrents of your moods, they're picking up how you're feeling on that day. So I often see the mirroring that goes on, and it's we're human. We're absolutely entitled to feel free, feel fear. We're entitled to go through the emotions that arrive on their own. So to worry about whether it's going to be transferred to our dog, it's just that when we're unaware of these emotions, it gets transferred onto our dog because someone, something, or some dog has to hold it, and they're the best mirrors for us. They're the best reflections. So sometimes it's about seeing what's triggered in you in order for us to see what is the dog reflecting back to us. And that's
no, I definitely think, when we work in clinics and that, a very big thing is, yes, we talk a lot about what is the animal doing and what is the pet doing, but what are we doing? What are we doing in that moment? What are we doing in that moment that can perpetuate that, or that, like you said, kind of mirrors that behavior? We've all seen it where walking with a dog, the person is very scared of the dog. All of a sudden the dog gets scared, similar with cats. They feel, oftentimes they feel before we even realize what we're feeling. I've experienced that personally with my own dog. I've kind of been like, you're a little bit off. And then a couple of minutes later, I'm like, I feel really off. Ooh. And it's almost like he knew. It's like he's like, oh,
he knew before you knew.
No. He did. No, and it's happened more than once, So but yeah,
so just to bring in an interesting, I mean, it's really interesting for animal shelters because I'm really generalizing, but they stand for rescue and rehabilitation, most animal shelters, and most dogs and cats do arrive there with the only thing they've known is fear, whether it's from past experiences, whether it's from what has happened to them. So it's interesting to rehabilitate and try to help the dogs come out of that constant fear, that survival mode. And I've seen it myself, how dogs are so forgiving, actually, and that's survival. And with love, a little bit of love, food, shelter, they come out of that.
Yeah, we teach them that you're safe. Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a little bit of wisdom from the side.
No, it's great. It's great. On that pearl of wisdom, we are out of time for this evening. Yes. So we're going to end it off with Bianca's pearl of wisdom. And thank you so much for the chat, and thank you so much for everyone who's joined us. And we will see all of you next week, Monday, 7 p.m. Any other pearls of parting words? Any other pearls? Or are you good?
Any questions? Anyone have any?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Eugene, any burning questions that you'd like to bring forward? Thumbs up, thumbs down, no question.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, Eugene. Hi.
Hello, guys. Thank you so much for giving time this evening. I have one question. It's with regards to fear and phobia. How do you tell the difference between just an act of fear or an act of phobia? Is it tells something different to pick up?
Yeah. So Eugene, I don't know if you want to jump in, Bianca, or is it cool? Okay, I'll quickly start off.
Lisa. You can start off.
So phobia, Eugene, would be where there is literally absolutely nothing that you can do in that moment. It's usually very strong physiological signs in dogs. So it would be shaking, excessive drooling. There's a very strong physiological response. That's usually dogs where they would, they would, to get away from the thing, they would, gnaw through something and there'd be blood everywhere and they just keep going. Another way is to, we said a little bit earlier in the talk that even the stimulus or the trigger at a very low, very, very low at a distance sets off that same physiological response. So let's say it's thunder, obviously the thunderstorm, but even if there's thunder on the radio, because that's what happens with my dog, there will be thunder on the radio or on the TV and absolutely start shaking. Immediately start shaking.
What I am hearing is that phobia can be very irrational and that you'll be able to see it.
Absolutely. Phobia is inherently irrational. Because again, it's just about that specific trigger in that moment, regardless of whether I'm actually if my life is physically threatened or not. Bianca, is anything you'd like to add?
It's almost, I want to call it spontaneous. So it's very spontaneous, and it's almost like it has its mind of its own. So once it's activated, it rolls out the way that it rolls out. So if you're in an extreme, as a human being, if you're in an extreme fear-induced state because something's about to threaten you, you never quite know what your response is going to be until it happens. And in that sense, that's why it's spontaneous.
The question now then is, what can I do when I confront a dog that is experiencing phobia and not necessarily fear?
Well, the main thing with phobia is you want to get the trigger as far away from the dog as possible. I know, as crazy as that sounds. So that would be, for example, with the thunder, I would literally put on like earmuffs with a snood. I play classical music. I completely try and block out, because I know it's the sound. So I completely block out, drown out that sound, and it helps. It definitely helps. Sometimes I start singing. I've done that many times, where if I don't have something at hand, or there's just all of a sudden, I literally just start belting and I just sing over and over and over, and I just try and block out. You literally need a block. So if it's a visual stimulus, completely take the visual away. In those moments, with phobic moments, you have to completely try and isolate the dog or cat that's absolutely petrified from that stimulus, because it's that stimulus that, if it's a true phobia, the second the stimulus is gone, or the stimulus can't be interpreted, the phobia goes away.
Excellent. Thank you for answering my question. That is it from me. You guys must have a lucky evening. I'll see you next week.
I just think, Bianca, is there something you want to add to what I just said to Eugene?
Really insightful, and it's once the autonomy wears off, the dog is able to cope again. So it's just one third what the dog is phobic about. You always prepare yourself and you have the tools, someone who's professional, someone who's trained in this area will be able to give you some guidelines as to what you can do in that particular situation, which will just help. As we said, it doesn't go away once it reaches phobia.
Yeah.
That's it.
All righty.
From
Thank you
me.
so much, everybody.
Have a lovely evening, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.